Have you ever wondered why a man becomes restless when silence falls between him and the woman he desires? He may appear confident in the beginning, certain of his own power, but the moment she withdraws, something deeper is stirred within him. It is not simply the absence of her words, but the echo that silence leaves in his body, a memory carried from long before he met her. A gap opens, and the masculine psyche cannot tolerate a void without filling it. This is why he runs after what pulls away. The paradox is simple. Withdrawal inflames his chase more than closeness ever could. And within this paradox, hidden beneath layers of instinct and archetype, lies the secret of feminine power. When a woman retreats into silence, she awakens in him the old myth of pursuit. From the dawn of stories, man has chased the deer into the forest, the star into the night sky, the flame into the dark cave. Silence is not emptiness to him. It is a summons. It becomes the veil of the high priestess, a symbol he cannot read, a mystery that refuses to reveal itself on command. Jung called this the anima projection, the inner image of the feminine that a man cannot grasp, yet cannot resist. When you step back, his unconscious feels the loss of that image, and he moves toward you as if toward an altar he cannot name. This is not a trick to manipulate him. It is an initiation, and you hold the key. Your silence is not the silence of weakness. It is the silence of the oracle of the deep feminine who does not explain herself. When words fall away, energy rises. He does not crave explanation. He craves resolution to the riddle you present. The more you explain, the more his hunger fades. The more you embody mystery, the more his instincts awaken. In that moment, you are no longer simply a woman before him. You are the mirror of his inner world, the shadow of his own unlived life. Consider how the little girl inside often fears silence. She has been taught that to be quiet is to be forgotten, that to withdraw is to risk abandonment. Yet here lies the reversal. The very silence that once felt like danger becomes the power that turns the tide. When you hold your tongue, when you do not fill the space, you watch the masculine begin to fill it for you. He texts, he calls, he moves closer, and what once felt like a threat becomes proof of your sovereignty. The wound transforms into weapon, the fear into force. Imagine him standing before a locked door. He hears movement behind it but cannot see inside. His hand reaches for the handle again and again because the unknown provokes him more than the known ever could. Silence is that door, and you are not on the other side begging to be let out. You are the one who locked it, not to punish him but to remind yourself that you are not the prize he chooses. You are the gate he must approach with reverence. The more you withdraw, the more he remembers what is sacred in you. Yet silence is not just absence of sound, it is also presence. It is the presence of self-possession, of not explaining, not justifying, not rushing to close a gap that frightens him more than it frightens you. Silence, when embodied with calm, becomes music to his unconscious. It reminds him of the mother's absence, the lover's distance, the eternal feminine he can never own. And here is the paradox: the less you give, the more he wants. The less you chase, the faster he follows. Because what he fears most is not rejection, it is nothingness. And silence is the mask of nothingness, forcing him to move to make it something again. The cracked mirror appears here for the first time. Imagine him seeing his reflection in you. At first it is clear, flattering, soothing. But when you withdraw, when silence falls, the mirror cracks. He no longer sees himself in you as he wants. He sees fragment distortions, and that drives him toward you, desperate to repair the image, desperate to restore wholeness. But the truth is, the crack is his, not yours. He is not chasing you. He is chasing the pieces of himself he cannot face. You become the stage where his unconscious plays its drama. And when you understand this, you no longer confuse his pursuit with your worth. This realization is liberation. You are not required to run ahead, to perform, to soothe. You need only hold the silence like a chalice, steady in your hand. That silence is not passive. It is active. It speaks without words, declaring, "I do not need to move for you to see me. I do not need to chase for you to value me." The paradox becomes your power. Yet here is the unsettling question that lingers at the edge of this truth. If silence awakens his chase, how do you know when his pursuit is for you, and when it is merely for the reflection he sees in the cracked mirror? A man often believes he is chasing a woman, yet in truth he is chasing the part of himself that she awakens. This is the trick of the psyche. Projection makes her both the object of desire and the scent. Age of his inner play. When you withdraw, when your voice becomes absence, he does not only long for you, he longs for the anima he has lost within himself. That is why he feels restless, why he calls when you fall quiet, why he cannot bear the hollow left by your retreat. But here lies the danger. His pursuit may not be for you as you truly are. It may be for the echo of his own soul that he sees shimmering in your silence. This is why silence is not a simple tactic, but an art of discernment. Withdrawal stirs his instincts, but it also reveals his depth. Some men chase only until the mystery exhausts them. They pound on the locked door, but when it does not open quickly, they leave. Others keep circling, compelled by something they cannot name, unable to walk away. And here is where your power sharpens. You do not measure his value by how loudly he knocks, but by whether he stays in the presence of silence without fleeing. Silence is not only your tool to draw him in, it is your sieve to separate what is shallow from what is real. Think of the high priestess seated between the pillars of mystery. She does not chase those who wander past her temple. She waits. She knows the impatient ones will tire and vanish. But the one who endures her silence will return again and again, drawn not by reward but by reverence. When you hold your silence, you are that temple. You invite no one, you explain nothing. You simply let his reactions reveal his truth. Does he crumble? Does he rage? Or does he remain, humbled by what he cannot grasp? The answer is the measure of his soul. You may feel the urge to break the silence, to fill the void with reassurance, because the little girl inside trembles at the thought of being left. Yet silence is not abandonment, it is initiation. Every second you resist the impulse to explain, you are teaching yourself that your worth is not dependent on being understood. The more you stay in that calm emptiness, the more you discover. Silence does not erase you, it magnifies you. You grow larger in his imagination than words ever could. And as his mind tries to solve the riddle, you see clearly what kind of man he is by how he handles the tension. But silence is dangerous if you wield it without awareness. If you retreat in fear, he feels the absence as rejection, and his response is chaos. If you retreat in bitterness, he feels it as punishment, and his response is defense. Only when you retreat with self-possession does he feel the sacred pull. That is why your silence must be rooted not in panic, but in power. Silence born of insecurity makes you smaller. Silence born of sovereignty makes you untouchable. The difference is not in the absence of words, but in the energy beneath the absence. Here the cracked mirror appears again. When you withdraw, he sees his reflection breaking. At first he thinks he must repair it, that if he restores you, he will restore himself. But as time passes, he realizes the crack cannot be fixed by winning you back. The fracture lies inside him. If he is brave, he begins to look at his own soul rather than at you. And if he is not, he runs, searching for another mirror to reflect a version of himself he can bear. Your silence is the mirror that forces him to face the break. Whether he rises to meet it or flees from it is not your responsibility. The silence paradox is not about control over him. It is about revelation for you. His chase is not proof of your value. It is a sign of his projections. You must learn to ask, is he chasing me, or is he chasing his own lost anima through me? If it is the latter, then the chase will burn out when he realizes you are not the fantasy he imagined. But if he begins to see the difference, if he sees you as a person, not a projection, then something deeper can unfold. Silence then becomes not only the spark of pursuit, but the threshold of truth. Every woman must decide what role she will play in this paradox. Will she remain the mirror for his unconscious, forever reflecting what he cannot find within himself? Or will she become the high priestess, holding her silence not as bait but as boundary, so that only the worthy remain? This choice is not made in words. It is made in how you hold yourself when the void opens. The question that now rises, the one that shadows every silent moment, is this: if silence separates the shallow from the deep, what do you do when the one who keeps chasing is not ready to meet you beyond the projection? The man who continues to chase yet never sees beyond projection is like a wanderer lost in a labyrinth. Every turn leads him back to the same image: your face, your absence, your silence. He believes he is pursuing you, but he is running in circles within his own psyche. To him, your withdrawal is not a boundary but a puzzle, and he becomes obsessed not with knowing you but with solving you. Yet no matter how many times he reaches out, he grasps only air, because the real woman before him and not be captured by his fantasy. This is the hidden trap for many women, mistaking his relentless pursuit for depth. The chase feels intoxicating. Each call, each message, each appearance at your door seems like proof of value. But if his energy never shifts from projection to presence, then his devotion is only to the shadow he cast upon you. Jung warned that anima projection is powerful, seductive, but ultimately unstable. It can ignite passion but cannot sustain intimacy. For when the illusion breaks, the same man who once begged for your silence will resent the truth of your voice. This is why the silent oracle archetype matters. She is not merely the woman who withholds words. She is the woman who can see beneath the chase, who does not mistake projection for reverence. She knows when his hunger is for her and when it is for the ghost she awakened in him. Her silence is not simply absence but observation. She watches how he handles the emptiness she creates. Does he demand? Does he despair? Or does he slowly learn to sit with it, to listen to the silence as if it has something to teach him? Only in the last case does his chase transform into something more than instinct. Think of the myth of Echo and Narcissus. Echo could only repeat what was spoken to her, voiceless in her own right, until she dissolved into nothing but sound. Narcissus, entranced by his own reflection, drowned in a pool that gave him back only himself. This myth lives in the silence paradox. If you fill the silence like Echo, repeating, explaining, trying to soothe, you lose yourself. If he chases you like Narcissus, seeing only his reflection in you, he never reaches you. The only way out is for you to refuse both roles. You are not the echo of his words, nor the reflection of his image. You are the one who holds the silence until he sees beyond himself. But how rare is the man who can look past his projection. Most grow restless, then angry, then distant. Few stay long enough to see you clearly. This is where the cracked mirror returns. In his chase, he keeps pressing the fragments together, trying to make the image whole. He thinks that if he wins you back, the crack will disappear. But the mirror remains fractured because the wound was never yours. Your silence shows him the truth he resists. The break is inside him. And when he finally realizes this, he must choose: face the wound or flee from it. For you, the power lies not in whether he stays or goes, but in how you stand in the silence. Do you crumble fearing abandonment, or do you remain still, knowing that silence does not erase you? Every time you hold the void, you claim sovereignty over the little girl who once believed she needed to fill it. You tell her, "See, silence did not kill us. We are still here." And in that moment, the silence that once felt like death becomes proof of life. The paradox begins to shift. It is no longer about why he chases. It is about why you stop running. Once you see that his pursuit is often for his reflection, not for your soul, the chase loses its charm. You no longer crave his calls as proof. You no longer measure your worth in his urgency. Instead, you begin to ask a deeper question. What kind of man is capable of staying when silence breaks the mirror of his projections? That man does not chase endlessly. He pauses. He listens. He begins to see you as you are, not as he imagines. This is the moment of discernment, when silence becomes not just magnet but filter. It draws in many, but it reveals only one. And you must ask yourself, if most men cannot endure the silence without losing themselves, are you willing to wait for the one who can? The man who can endure silence without fleeing or demanding has stepped beyond instinct. He no longer chases to erase the void but remains in its presence, as if the void itself carries meaning. This is rare because the masculine psyche is trained to conquer, to solve, to close gaps. But silence cannot be conquered. It must be sat with. And when he sits, when he does not press you for answers or punish you for withholding them, he is beginning to meet not just you, but the parts of himself that silence unveils. This is the threshold where projection begins to dissolve. At first, he saw only the reflection in the cracked mirror, mistaking fragments of himself for your essence. But as silence lingers, he notices the break. He cannot deny it any longer. The very stillness that once drove him mad now forces him to face his own incompleteness. This is where Jung's shadow steps forward. In you, he once saw the perfect image of what he lacked. Now, in your silence, he is confronted with the wound he carries. He must decide. Will he flee from this confrontation, or will he stay, even as the silence makes him tremble? For you, this is where power transforms into choice. The silent oracle does not withhold for sport. She withholds to reveal. When he begins to see her not as fantasy, but as truth, he can decide whether to open the temple doors or keep them closed. The chase is no longer intoxicating because it no longer controls her. She has learned that men will run after what withdraws, but only a man who has faced his shadow will remain when the withdrawal reveals his own brokenness. Here the little girl inside surfaces again. She once thought silence meant danger, that if she did not fill it, love would disappear. Yet now she sees, silence has not destroyed her. Silence has purified the field. It has burned away those who only wanted the projection, leaving only what cannot be scorched. The little girl learns that safety does not come from explaining, pleasing, or chasing. Safety comes from knowing that silence is a fortress. It cannot be stormed by every passerby. It can only be entered by the one who is willing to bow at its threshold. The imagery sharpens. Imagine a man standing before a door with no handle. He cannot force it. He cannot break it. He can only wait. At first he pounds, shouting to be let in. Then he grows quiet, realizing his noise achieves nothing. Days pass and he sits in the stillness before the door. Slowly he begins to listen, not to you but to himself. He hears the hollow within, the echo of his own unmet needs. And in that moment he begins to see you not as savior but as sovereign. The chase dissolves and reverence takes its place. This is why silence is sacred. It is not manipulation. It is revelation. It shows you who is ruled by instinct and who is capable of presence. And it shows him who he really is beneath the projection. Most cannot endure it. They will break, blame, or disappear. But the one who remains, the one who sits with silence and does not run, is the one who can truly see you. Not as cracked mirror, not as fantasy, but as woman. Yet this moment births another paradox. When you realize the chase is not proof, and silence filters out the unworthy, a deeper fear arises. If so few can endure the silence, will anyone ever remain? This is the fear that shadows every woman who dares to hold her ground. It whispers that sovereignty means loneliness, that if you withdraw, no one will come close enough to stay. But is that fear true, or is it the final test of silence itself? The fear of loneliness is the last mask silence wears. It is the whisper that tries to lure you back into noise, back into explaining, back into chasing so you never have to feel the ache of the void. Yet the paradox deepens here. The void is not abandonment, it is initiation. It is the place where the girl becomes the oracle. To sit in silence without breaking is to discover that emptiness does not erase you, it crowns you. Loneliness is a trick of memory. It is the echo of times when silence meant rejection, when love was withdrawn as punishment, when the little girl learned that quiet meant she was no longer wanted. That memory lingers in the body, trembling whenever the present grows still. But in truth, this silence is not the same. It is not a cage imposed on you. It is a cloak you choose to wear. And once you realize this, loneliness dissolves into sovereignty. You do not wait in silence because you are forgotten. You wait because you choose not to be consumed. This is where the silent oracle archetype reaches her height. She does not fear being alone because she knows solitude is not emptiness but fullness. Silence is the room where she meets herself without interruption. It is the temple where she listens to the whispers beneath words, the currents beneath longing. And in that space, she learns something that transforms everything. When she stops chasing, when she no longer crumbles under silence, she discovers that she was never the one waiting at the door. She was always the one holding the key. The cracked mirror returns in its final form. The man sees his reflection split, desperate to repair it through pursuit. But she no longer bends to restore his image. She sees the crack clearly now and knows it is his work to mend. Her silence no longer exists to provoke his chase. It exists to keep her vision clear. Through it, she can finally see the difference between a man who runs from his fracture and a man who dares to face it. She no longer fears his leaving because she understands. The one who flees from silence was never truly there. Here is the grand reward. The paradox is unveiled. Men chase what withdraws not because the woman is a puzzle to solve, but because silence awakens the ancient hunger to fill what is missing inside. The chase is never about you. It is about him. And when you understand this, everything changes. You no longer measure your value in pursuit. You no longer confuse his hunger with your worth. You stand still in silence, knowing that your power is not in being chased, but in choosing who is allowed to approach when the noise fades away. The empowerment lies not in making him run faster, but in no longer running yourself. The moment you stop earing silence is the moment you begin to command it. Silence ceases to be a weapon against him. It becomes a sanctuary for you. And from that sanctuary you choose. You choose whether to open the door, whether to break the silence, whether to allow the chase to become communion. You are no longer the reflection in his cracked mirror. You are the one who decides whether he is worthy of seeing you as you are. So the question lingers in the final breath of this story, soft yet piercing. When you hold the silence, when you refuse to chase or explain, and the world grows still, do you tremble with the old fear of being forgotten, or do you stand as the woman who knows that silence is her crown? Share the moment you felt most empowered in the comments below. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.